Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Coming up next, Off 90, a beekeeping club in Rochester, Maurer Brothers Tavern in Elba, and the cemetery at the former Rochester State Hospital. It's all just ahead. Off 90.
This is what we'd consider an apiary. It's a collection of beehives.
When he smokes them, they think it's a forest fire. So they're... Yeah, that's okay. I'm safe because I've got this jacket on.
Can I smoke it again? I just saw the queen in here.
Hi, I'm Dwayne Manson, a local beekeeper. My wife and I have been raising bees now for probably 7-8 years. Most people get into it for the bees, and they get out of it because of the honey. Because these buggers, we probably got 600 pounds of honey last year. When they're in what's called a honey flow, and that's when the flowers are in full bloom, they can take one of these medium boxes, which is about 45 pounds, and fill it in a week. It's absolutely amazing if you think of this being done at less than a drop of bee.
We have quite a bit of honey and we produce quite a bit of honey, but now we've changed our thinking and we're not so interested in that. We are now trying to save the bees and trying to figure out how to keep them over winter and a sustainable honey keeping process now. The bees that we have coming this week are all
California.
they're from California. And they're there through the winter, and then they bring them whenever Donner Pass opens up, and we get them here.
We are out at Seacap Orchard right now, and what we're waiting for is a semi that's been coming from South Dakota after getting stuck in a blizzard in Wyoming. This semi is loaded up with packages of, well, we call them 2-pound packages of bees with a mated queen. And this is where all the beekeepers in southern Minnesota and northern Iowa, and some as far away as La Crosse, come together to get their bees to start the new year with. We'll be unpacking about 1,650 packages of bees, and then the semi goes to the next stop.
How many do you need, sir? Do you have a tool to separate them?
No, I do not.
Then you're going to have to find one tomorrow. There's one guy who's finding the tool. How many do you need? Just take these down.
I'll just take these and take the long.
All right.
And then we are getting some other bees that are Minnesota hygienic, which are raised for Minnesota winters. They're a little easier to overwinter.
And they can detect diseases, and they clean the hive. So if they figure out a little one's got a problem, then they will actually clean the bee or clean the hive to get rid of it.
And there is a lot of beekeepers. You probably know a beekeeper. You probably already have somebody that's sharing honey with you from their hives. We have them all the way through Rochester, all the way around the surrounding area. Myself, I run about 25 hives each year and spin out about 2,500 pounds of honey each year. It started as a hobby and it's become an obsession and a business and just a lot of fun that I do every year.
Our club ends up with 600, almost 700 boxes.
We are co-presidents of SEMBA, Southeast Minnesota Beekeepers Association, which is a group of 70, 80 beekeepers. And we have all types of beekeepers. We have some that are professionals and have large apiaries of hundreds of hives. And we have some like us who are hobbyists. We have 7 or 8 hives. And we have some that are in town, in neighborhoods in Rochester who have beehives there. And our membership is also a lot of wannabes, future beekeepers.
This is my second year as a beekeeper, and it is a remarkable journey. The bees are magnificent. The people here, the club, are super knowledgeable and friendly and hardworking, and we need bees. They are tremendous creatures, and the world needs more of them. That's why I got into it. So,
I'm Pamela Meyer. I'm the director out at Corey Hill Nature Center. This is a day we look forward to every year, which is Bee Pickup Day. I've got 2 colonies of bees here. One's going to go in our indoor observation hive at the Nature Center, and the other one will go out in our meadow in our top bar hive.
SEMBA started back in the 50s with a bunch of people that were taking or had their own apiaries, but they were doing it on a large scale. They'd get together so they can sell off their honey and get the best price. Then from there it started to grow. We ended up moving to Corey Hill, and we have our meetings there again the second Thursday of every month, starting in February and going through November. That kind of follows the bees' lifespan, or what you have to work on the bees for the year.
But I kind of like our SEMBA mentorship, because you pair with someone who's in the club and you get together and they'll come out to your apiary, you can go to theirs, you do some hands-on work with a mentor.
You'll end up going down and sitting and watching the bees come and go from your hives. They're incredible, and it's immensely relaxing to do it. We answer questions, we get phone calls about how to raise the bees, how to take care of the bees. Unfortunately, we can't help you with bears at this time, even though we have some in the area and they're starting to attack the hives. But anything else, any other questions we can possibly help with, the club is there to promote bees in general, because they're good for the environment and pollination.
Yeah, like right now, he's getting a lot of calls of newer beekeepers just wanting to know for sure how to hive those bees.
Almost a pure panic.
Yeah.
The biggest draw for the Whitewater Valley, well, 2 things. People like to party. The other thing, though, is the fish are biting. The DNR go and plant a bunch of rainbow trouts for everybody to catch. Everybody's out pushing them around. The trout season, usually this is our busiest time of year. I got turkey hunters, trout fishermen, campers, and usually there's a flood run today. So usually the town's just, there's no place to park.
Yeah, Mauer Brothers Tavern, been in and out of here for the better part of 30 years. We usually try to come down every year on trout fishing opener, stop in, have a beer for lunch, have a pizza, hang out.
Been coming here for probably about 40 years now. It's a super tradition. If you look around the roads, the campsites are absolutely packed, the streams are full of people, and it's always a good time at Mauer Brothers.
Just a good staple in good old downtown Elba.
Well, if you walk into the bar right now, you're going to see a whole bunch of people fishing and telling how they caught a big trout, but they didn't because they're all lying.
Kept maybe 11 or 12 so far. We get back out after lunch here and see if we can pluck off a few more, soak up some sunshine, and enjoy a beautiful spring day.
I took over my family business about 10 years ago, 2014. I am the 5th generation to be running the business with me and my sister.
My brother and I own Mauer Brothers Tavern in Elba, Minnesota. My great-great-grandfather opened her up in 1890, and I've been in the bar since I could walk. Probably 5 years old, washing dishes, cleaning tables, bust some tables, stocking coolers, racking bottles for a penny a bottle as a kid.
I think it's one of the oldest family-ran bars in the state of Minnesota in continuance of family.
It used to be out where Highway 74 is, where the boulevard is, and then they dug out the basement in the 1920s when they put the highway through, and they took the building and they put it on rollers and rolled it an inch every day for a year until it was on its location. It's been through, what, 4 floods probably, and it's still standing. I like to make my dad proud because him and Jim ran it for years, and then I guess I wasn't ever planning on doing this, but it's really fun and I'm actually okay at it. And Robert has delicious food and I got the personality, so it kind of goes hand in hand. My great-great-grandfather started the business and I'm sure he intended to keep it going, so we might as well keep it going.
My grandpa Bob grew up here, and he grew up in the bar back when it was a smaller town. So after my dad's been working at that business since 1976, I think he's been working there. And I came into the picture because my Uncle Jim was retiring. So I took over the business, and then about 5-6 years later, my sister April came in to take over for my dad's spot. He retired, and he still helps out. He works the weekdays and helps us. I get to meet all kinds of interesting people, and really, really interesting people. I get to cook and make different kinds of food specials all the time. I never run the same specials really outside of my Friday fish. And it's intensive labor, and it's a bunch of sitting around BSing with the customers, having a good time. It's something I always wanted to do when I was growing up. I kind of made a decision sooner or later in life that I was just I wanted to stay in the town of Elba. I wanted to see the town of Elba succeed. Finally decided to bite the bullet and made up my mind to come help run the family business. And I got into it, and it was pretty much just been full throttle the whole way.
Yeah, that brownie, that thing just chomped on that crowd.
This one's smaller than mine. Look.
Yep, mine too. I just cut it.
Yeah, I got that.
Got a weekly winter board where we put our biggest big trout on it, so you can get a free 12-pack of pop or beer and get your name on the board so you can see it and let your friends know about it.
This is my first time ever trout fishing today and caught this guy, and I don't know if I'm happy or sad because I think it's all downhill from here, but at least I'll enjoy this moment.
If you're just coming down because you want to go fishing for a day or two, or you can come down to our business and we sell fishing licenses, hunting licenses, and all that fun stuff. So it is available if you need it. You just need a driver's license to purchase it. The Whitewater Valley is so gorgeous. They got thousands of acres of land that you can hunt in, you can fish in it, you can trap in it, you can hike it, there's a tower in Elba that you can go climb steps up. Just so much to do down this valley, especially when you get gorgeous days like today.
Because you got how many generations of families that have grown up in the valley, and we tell them stories about their grandparents who might not be around anymore, and I could be like, oh, I remember your grandpa, and tell them stories, and then it will just continue on through generation and generation, and all these families that are intertwined in the valley. It's pretty cool.
I have another generation. I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 5-month-old son who maybe someday will take over the business and bring the business to its maybe 200th anniversary. 150th anniversary ain't too far away. The business wouldn't be here without my family. They're the reason the business is there, so it's my family's business. It isn't specifically my business. I'm just the one taking care of it right now.
Well, the Rochester State Hospital was established to kind of back up the trend towards moving to servicing the folks kind of on the periphery of society. It was the second insane asylum established in Minnesota, and it was originally supposed to be a hospital for alcoholics, imbibers as they called them then.
The first year that the Rochester State Hospital opened in 1879, they had 2 deaths, and where the families didn't come to claim the bodies. And so they needed to find a burial spot for these patients. So the superintendent at that time established a cemetery. There were ultimately 76 burials in that cemetery, and that cemetery was called the Rosemont, and the location of the Rosemont is unknown today. In 1885, after the state hospital had been running for a while, they had outgrown their property, and so they purchased another parcel of land north of the original property, and they laid out this cemetery then in 1886. But in 1965, they decided to sell off the farmland, which was 500 acres, to the city of Rochester. And so that land became, 212 acres of that land became Quarry Hill Nature Center.
All the way up through the 60s when the cemetery was shut down, they would keep the caskets and the dead in caves nearby through the winter before they interned them in the ground. And a lot of the caskets that were built for the dead that had died at the hospital were actually made by other inmates. So in a kind of a weird twist of fate, those folks would basically be seeing their own destinies in a lot of ways in the work that they were doing.
Initially, the burials started and went up the hill, and the only markings for the graves were little canisters that had numbers on them, so the graves were all numbered. But the cemetery itself had gotten so overgrown that we were putting markers back what appeared to be in the middle of the woods because it had just encroached on the cemetery so much. And it had gotten to a point where most of the citizens didn't realize this was a cemetery. And so an organization was formed and to try to deal with that. And so little by little, we got things organized, got some interest in the community in getting it put back together again so people realized it was a cemetery and not just a sledding hill.
The reason that we got involved with this project is we were hiking out here at Quarry Hill, and we decided to hike through the woods, and when we got into the woods, we found can markers. We didn't know what they were, we just found piles of these can markers. And so we went looking for someone to work with us to determine, first off, what that was, and secondly, what to do about it.
The tremendous difficulties that were involved in having to identify these graves. There are over 2,000 people buried in this cemetery, and again, most of them were labeled simply with a number, if they were labeled at all. Thankfully, the state records did keep the plats, the cemetery plats, and there was an ability to, from those plats, get the names, the dates of birth, the dates of deaths for individuals. But it was a tremendous amount of detective work that went into having to research the who's, what's, where's, and even in some instances, a little bit of biographical information about some of the folks that are interred here.
In 1979, a memorial was placed out here in lieu of making 2,000 headstones, but it sat in the center of the cemetery, and so you had to walk around it and walk over graves in order to get through the cemetery. So first thing our group decided to do was move this memorial and make an official entrance to the cemetery.
So we brought it down here to the front of where the actual graves are, and at that time it was impossible to move it as it was, so it had to be dismantled and then reconstructed here with the same granite panels that we had done in 1979. While Beth and others were doing the research to verify and clarify, all the dates and names, we were in the wintertime when our shops were slow, we were manufacturing and making the markers. And then in the summertime, we'd come out and we'd have crews that we'd hire and come out here and lay it all out with the strings for the grid and get them all installed. And
we also later had 8 benches made to mark the perimeter of the cemetery. On the benches are letters that indicate what plat of the cemetery you're standing in.
Yeah, the kiosk itself was done to fulfill a need of information. We took excerpts of photographs of some of the different phases of the project. We took excerpts of the history and the people that made it happen.
When my husband and I were first working on this cemetery and trying to determine where the graves all were, a couple approached us out here in the early years that we were working on this. They introduced themselves as the family of Lillian Schuneman, and we had questions about the grave of Lillian Schuneman. She was one of the 20 marked graves, but her stone was laying out here on the south side of the cemetery, and we knew she was buried on the north side of the cemetery. And so we informed them that we knew exactly where her grave was. So in 2006, we were having a community dedication program out here, and the family came and we ceremoniously moved her marker to her correct grave. I think these people need to be recognized. They were citizens just like you and I. They were having a hard time and they needed help. And so they came here for help. And in doing so, a lot of them lived out their lives here, passed away here, and were forgotten. They needed more than that, so I felt they deserved to be remembered.
Remembering this place is more than just the dignity of the dead. It's remembering the story of compassion towards those less fortunate, of caring about other people. And I think this is a remarkable achievement here that they have gotten done to get these graves marked, and just a wonderful reminder that compassion doesn't end. It continues even after someone is gone.
Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.